Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm grateful for you agreeing tonight to share some of your time with me and believe that your experiences will make a contribution to the efforts of keeping communities safe and understanding what it is to really honor individuals exactly where they are and how they show up. And so my intention will be just to ask a question and have as many of you as would like to answer that question. And there may be an occasion or two where I want everyone to chime in, but we don't have to have everyone answer every question. And so you all have received the questions prior to the start of this session. And so we'll jump right in. We know that systemic barriers and social factors, including access to quality health care, housing, transportation, and job opportunities are often referred to as systemic racism. We know that systemic racism has exacerbated the disparate impacts of COVID-19 experienced by Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other communities of color, in particular in Wisconsin, and including disparities in vaccination rates. The grant that is providing funding for this time together is a Department of Human Services grant. And what we hope is that through targeted distribution and strategic outreach with the community stakeholders, that Wisconsin is making a deliberate choice to reduce barriers to access of the COVID-19 vaccine and provide relief to communities that have withstood the worst of this pandemic. And so this is an educational opportunity for us to shed light and insight into folks that make decisions for marginalized populations. And so what I'd like to do is just highlight the fact that this panel is a panel of millennials. And during the pandemic at different times, millennials had some lower vaccination rates in terms of their age category. And so we thought that it would be useful to just have a conversation with millennials to hear how they experience vaccination information, et cetera, et cetera. And so Cheyenne, I see that you are with us. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Excellent. We can't see you yet, and I'm not sure what's happening, but we will just, we invite you to, oh, there you go. There you go. Excellent. Very great. Okay, so we will just get to you in just a second because I will go according to who's on my screen. Okay? All righty. And so in the top left of my screen, Mr. Tyrants, can you tell me a little bit about who you are?
Well, yes, I'm Jordan Tyrants. I just turned 30 today. I live out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Couple lovely kids. Daughter turned 11 October 22nd. Son is a year and 2 months. And working in the insurance lane, property and casualty, life and health, that sort of thing. And so deal with a lot of people on a regular day basis, not necessarily face to face, but virtually and over the phone.
Excellent. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Presley, Arthur, could you tell us who you are?
Yes. My name is Arthur. I reside here in Dallas, Texas. I am single. Well, not single, but I don't have any kids yet. I work for the insurance industry as well. I work for Aetna CVS. I'm a quality analyst. I've been a part of the organization for at least 8 years. I'm working on a nonprofit for homeless individuals. And my passion is just to help the needy. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Fallon, Miss Fallon, you're on my screen.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, hello. Once again, my name is Fallon Lee. I'm 34 years old. I am originally from Los Angeles, California, but I do live in Houston, Texas currently. I am in law enforcement. I'm pretty sure, as you can see right now. And just basically a little bit about myself. I have three stepchildren, my wife and I, so I kind of took on a family, instant family, as we call it. So that's a big part of my life. Right now, learning to raise children. So that is something that I'm working on right now. And I guess that's pretty much it about me at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And down at
Yes,
the
ma'am.
bottom of our screen, we have Shayana Bradley.
Oh goodness. Um, well, I'm from Mississippi. I'm new to real estate but I do real estate in the state of Alabama, not in the state of Mississippi for personal reasons.
Uh-huh.
And before that, I was a bartender for a long time and I enjoyed that. But while I was bartending, I continued to get sick from various like different things that I've never known. Like the COVID, I was getting that constantly. I had the new strain of the pink eye, but this was extreme because my eyes was like bulging out of my face. Like it was bad. And then I was sick for a while from that. So then that career kind of died down for me because of that. So I got into real estate. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for your service. So I'll jump right into the other questions. How did you experience the invitation for vaccination? We know that there was a push across the United States to get everyone vaccinated. What contributed to your decision to vaccinate or not? And what position did you take based on the invitation to get a vaccination? And I'll start let's start over here with Arthur. Arthur, can you start us off?
Absolutely. My family was important. Mom was a recovered cancer survivor, so I had to make sure that I took responsibility to make sure that she was, if I visited, she was healthy, and also I didn't want to bring any kind of COVID-19 symptoms or anything to her during those holiday moments. The steps that I took to prevent is that I in tune to the news channels and how they placed certain areas to attain the vaccine, which I found which is fair part. So instead of waiting, I end up taking my toes and going on and taking that shot, standing in lines for at least over an hour or two to get that shot immediately, so I can actually prevent any, contractions of that disease to any of my family members.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Fallon, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and the invitation to get a vaccination or not?
Sure, absolutely. So I am vaccinated. What kind of made me want to go ahead and do it? I was actually the first person to get it in my family. I'm an asthmatic. I've had asthma all of my life, and just knowing the struggle that people were going through who were dying from COVID and how it basically attacks the lungs, I know that feeling. And just having asthma attacks throughout my life, I never wanted, I didn't want COVID to be something that ended my life. So I decided to go ahead and get the vaccination for myself because I wanted to make sure that Fallon was okay. Because if the people around me, are not going to protect me, I have to protect myself. And at the time I was doing operations work for Target, and inside of Target, it was a CVS. and no one was really going to get the vaccine inside of Target. So I was talking to the pharmacist one day, and she was like, "Hey, we have the vaccines available. You don't have to wait in a long line. Just set an appointment and come on and get your shot." And so I set my appointment. I went ahead and I got the shot, and everything worked out for me. I did get COVID twice, and I can say that the vaccine is the reason why I was able to recover so quickly. I did not have a lot of the symptoms that a lot of folks complained about. Mine was just like I had a very mild cold.
Okay.
I was in the hospital one time where my breathing was pretty rough, but I can say that the vaccine saved my life.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Cheyenne or Shy.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I had COVID twice as well, and both times were pretty bad for me. The first time I had like a dog-like bark. I mean, when I coughed, it sounded like a large dog barking. It didn't even sound like myself, but I experienced that for about 30 days, and it was bad. And I'm still trying to work and maintain within this time too. Now, the second time they told me the exact COVID that I had, it was the SARS too, the ones where people were becoming paralyzed from it. And when I tell you I had that symptom, like it was like a nerve in my back that was pulling. I woke up, I felt bad that night before I went to bed, but when I woke up that morning, I'm talking about crying just to do basic stuff like get out of the bed because the nerve in my back was pinching so hard. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't do nothing for about 5 to 7 days. It was really bad. And then I had a fever of 104. I was told to self-medicate. I was sent home. But when my grandma had it, that's what provoked me to get the vaccine because she didn't have any symptoms and she had the SARS too, but she was the only person willing to take care of me out of all of my family members, her and my mom, because they had their vaccine, their boosters, and they didn't get sick. They didn't have any symptoms, none of that. So that's why I became vaccinated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And then Jordan, at the top of our screen, can you tell us a little bit about how you experienced the invitation to get a vaccination?
I can. So I was working with special needs individuals at the time, and we were requiring the individuals to get vaccinated, and they weren't requiring us to get vaccinated. And I, to be honest, was very just concerned and kind of like very skeptical. It felt like I wouldn't go as far to say I was like an anti-vaxxer, but it was like, it feels like the government, like because of distrust and other things of personal and even professional areas in my life, that it was felt like I didn't know enough about it to be comfortable in doing that, because it felt like everything was fine, right? And then the world's like shutting down, and I actually stopped at the job because they were starting to require vaccinations, and I did a lot of self-isolating, and wanted to get knowledge of just what I didn't even know what COVID was. What is COVID? No underlying health issues, very healthy for most of my life. And I actually have my father, who's a doctor, we had some very interesting conversations about it. And my son was just born, so it was like, his mom didn't get the vaccine while she was pregnant, and then she ended up getting it later on, and it was just some really interesting conversations, and I had to do some educating for myself, just to be in the loop and get some knowledge about what COVID was and effects of if you're vaccinated as opposed to unvaccinated. And then hearing about how perfectly healthy people, athletes, gym rats, people with no underlying health issues were basically just getting their legs taken out from under them. because of COVID. And so it really just pushed me to do some research on my own.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Well, so what's great is that we see that there are various backgrounds and different experiences from all over the United States. And so I'm grateful for that with this panel. Sheila Walsh actually was an entertainment personality, and she had a situation where she had come from a family that had some mental health issues in her family, and she was a broadcaster, a televangelist, I guess is what they call them. And when she started experiencing very heightened mental health issues, and she told a couple of people, they told her, don't tell anybody else and don't ever let on to it in your work. And so one day she was doing a broadcast and she felt so overwhelmed, she walked off the set, and it saved her life. She walked off the set and checked herself into a mental health hospital. And she said it saved her life. And she became a prolific writer, has written a few best-selling books. And she talks about the experience and how challenging it was. And she said that sometimes God gives you gifts that when you open them, they make your hands bleed. And so I read that and it was poignant to me. And I was like, I think COVID was that kind of gift, because there are a number of things that happen because of the virus that if we didn't have the virus, we wouldn't have done. And so I'm curious to know, what gifts did the pandemic provide you that you may not have grown from any other way? And so tell me, did you get gifts from COVID that you're appreciative of, or that you probably wouldn't have gotten if you were not in the pandemic? Anybody?
Sure, I'll answer that question. At that time, I was staying with my mother and my little sister, and my little sister, she spent her entire 11th grade year at home during homeschool, and just being able to spend that time with them every day, because my mom was at work, my sister was at school, I was working. So just being able to share that time together and just bond and play games and just figure out things to make the days go by, and just the laughing, and we would cook together, and things like that. I just feel like it really, it was a gift and a curse, at the same time. So for me, it was family bonding at the time, that I feel like if COVID never happened, I would not have those bittersweet memories of the pandemic and the lives that were lost. But at the same time, I got to spend some quality time with my mom and my sister.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Other folks?
Yes, I'm glad Fallon opened my mind up with that, because my gift was a gift of praise. I really was in a place where I had to take solitude. I didn't have this capacity or space or any of that when I was actually in a physical building at my company. Now that I have was able to work home permanently with my job, I was able to, create other ideas and plans that I have, for the future. So that's amazing for me. So I really appreciate, the solitude of being, in my independent self, and I can actually create something out of that. Because when you're clouded, a lot of things around you, a school, family, all of that, you can't think, in a, individual state. So with that being said, I think that that's my gift. I appreciate the solitude.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Shy?
Well, one thing, because I was in the casino industry, I was a bartender at the casino, but COVID opened up the door. It gave us more freedom to take time off to get ourselves well when we're sick, because before the pandemic, we were expected to continue to work through our illnesses. When we wasn't well, we were still expected to be on the job. So because of the pandemic, it's like, whoa, let these people go home and get themselves well and then come back to work.
Mhm.
But it took a pandemic to get us here.
I'm so sorry. I'm in the car and my radio went off. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you want, would you just mute when you're not talking, and then that'll be great. All right. Thank you so much. So no harm, no foul. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Shai. Were you finished?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Jordan, and I'll try not to have you be last on the next round.
Oh, it's not a problem. It's not a
Okay.
problem.
Did you get a gift from the pandemic that made your hands bleed?
Piggybacking off of all three of the previous people who shared, I believe it's Presley, right?
Author.
Yes,
Arthur.
sir.
It's
Yes, sir.
Arthur. Okay. Mr. Arthur had said solitude. So I got out of work, really. I was working, had switched jobs, and then had kind of went into kind of construction. I was working long hours while my girlfriend was pregnant. She had taken off work. Um, baby's here. She actually goes back to work, and now I take off work, and I got to spend like a couple months with my newborn son. And it was actually a blessing because if the pandemic hadn't happened, I don't think I would have had the capacity to be able to be like, well, it's okay for us to stay at home because daycare is expensive. People are worrying about masks and being at home, isolated from people. So it opened the opportunity to spend some time with my newborn son, which was amazing, as well as the solitude and just being able to mentally, I think it was good for me to have some just space from the noise. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the everyday day-to-day things of life, and we don't actually take mental breaks and do things, because mental health is huge. Do things that are very impactful for us, just our well-being. And so those two things will probably be my biggest.
Thank you. Thank you. And would you mind, I'll let you start us off on the next question.
Sure.
What one thing do you wish more government and health officials knew about what you think about the vaccination? What one thing do you wish more government and health officials knew about your position on vaccination?
I would say the fear of the unknown. So I think the rush to get everyone vaccinated and protect everyone, and in aspects it overlooks maybe the anxiety that some people have, the fear of the unknown that a lot of people actually go through and deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I think educating people on why the vaccine is needed and effective, rather than just like infomercials and you need to get vaccine now it's free, get vaccinated or you're losing your job. It's like, well, what am I putting in my body? What are the benefits? We heard about, not what are the benefits. I think just a more of an empathy, and like we're getting vaccinated to save our families, to save the people we care about, to protect them, right? And I think it was important to give a more in-depth description of those things, I guess. I'm not sure how to really say that.
No, that's
But
great.
elaborate a little more on those, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
All righty. What is one thing you all wish more government and health officials knew about your position on vaccination? Shai, go with you. Let's go backwards this time.
Well, due to the history of vaccination, I would like for the government to know we, the people, we need to be able to trust the vaccine. Like he said, we don't know what we're putting in our body. We don't know what COVID is. We don't know. So in order to get some type of understanding in the unknown, we have to be able to trust it. I only trust it because I guess the elderly community, and then I still have a lot of them in my family whom I adore. They trust the vaccine, and when they had it, they weren't as sick as I was. Like I was sick.
Mhm.
So we need some type of trust here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Arthur, what's one thing you
Mhm.
wish the more government and health officials knew about your position on vaccination?
I wish that the government will found mostly on, what environment or what area needs. Uh, I don't know how the statistic goes, but I know that there is a population that they actually do graftings about, what area is being mostly affected. Maybe they can give more of a protocol or some type of information. We're out here voting. I mean, they should do the same for COVID. They should have people in the streets voting and or something, telling them, hey, let's come and learn the ingredients of the vaccine. And these things, there are symptoms just like a medicine that you take over the counter, but these are preventions to help you to maintain and also sustain your life ability. So those are my aspirations when it comes to government officials. I think they need to express more of the importance on saving lives and not just demanding people to take a vaccine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fallon.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna go with the education piece. Um, I feel like COVID was just such a big secret. You know, we don't really know what it is, but we want you to go get this shot for it. So I feel like if health officials would have came out and told us more about, what COVID is, I think a lot of us would have gotten the vaccine sooner. And, instead of kind of being scared of it. I was not scared of the vaccine, but I was scared of, hey, what, this might affect me, in a way that my body does not agree with. But I just really, really wish that they would have just given us a bigger education piece on what COVID is. This is what's in the vaccine. We knew more about the symptoms of getting the shot than we actually knew about what COVID-19 actually was. So I feel like if we would have swapped that around, told you what the vaccine, what is about, and these are the ingredients, like Chuck said, and I think a lot more of us would have gotten vaccinated, at the time. So let's just educate us a little bit more on what it is.
Okay. And that really actually dovetails quite nicely to another question in the list of questions. And the question was, a lot of misinformation floated around during the early stages of the pandemic. How and where did you get your information about the vaccine?
I guess I'll go. Is that okay? Just being at home, having that idle time, I would read about it. I think COVID was on every major news station in the world at the time. So, it was just so much information to where you really didn't know where to go. But I watched a lot of CNN. I read a lot of, articles from, profound physicians and things of that nature, so that, I can kind of, make my own opinion about, what COVID is. So that's kind of where I got my information from. Somewhat, not too much social media, but tried to steer myself in a way of, medical articles and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Arthur?
Mine's happened suddenly. I was at my job and all of a sudden I received the email and telling me, hey, you guys, we're going to be sending y'all home in waves. And I was the first one. I said, listen, I'm not staying here. So, so my company, they were actually positioning us to come back into the office on a certain period. But for some reason, others were contracting the virus like within weeks, back to back, like at least 3 or 4 people. So they eventually assigned us permanent from home, but their requirements were to have a vaccination. So we had to provide proof of our vaccination card, and we had to post it on our website page to show that we are following federal guidelines.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
And my information was from the CVS corporation.
Okay. Okay. All righty. Jordan or Shy?
Yeah, I'll go. I was getting ready to visit family, and I actually got really sick and had to go to the emergency room because I had some swelling and just what I thought were symptoms of COVID because I didn't. It's kind of like, everybody's freaking out about this thing. I don't know what it is. Whatever. I'm healthy. It's not going to bug me. It's not going to affect me. And just had some really serious pain in my chest, breathing trouble, things I had never experienced before. And went to the emergency room and got basically a pamphlet, which made me reach out to some medical people I have in my family and people who were vaccinated that I knew, my mom and some others. And I was like, well, what is this really that we're talking about? And forced me to kind of do my own research. Because I'm scared. I've always, I guess you play both sides of the fence. I'm always the skeptic, like, well, this is what people say. I'm not gonna believe what people say. I have to figure it out for myself. So I guess getting sick was what forced me to do some research.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Shy, how about you? Where did you get your information about the COVID-19 vaccine?
I did a lot of self-study. I watched the news, but beyond that, it was social media. It was my friends on Facebook posting their experiences, and a lot of them kind of shocked me with the stuff that they would post, but it kind of prepared me for what I went through because like the SARS-2 that I had that leaves people paralyzed, it was a lot of people that had actually got it. It was a news article that was shared about this man that was a nurse. He didn't know he had COVID, but he got in the bathtub because I went to sleep and I woke up and I couldn't move. He got in the bathtub and he couldn't move, but he lived alone. He stayed in the tub for 4 days and died before anyone noticed he was there. And when they had an autopsy, it said he had COVID. And that kind of affected me, but I had read that way before I had it. It was nurses that was getting it and left paralyzed. Like it was a lot of different things that I picked up off social media.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Wow. Interesting. So did you have a moment, did either of you or any of you have a moment that you can reflect on when you realized that you could die if you caught COVID and that had an influence on your vaccination? I know that Fallon, you said because you're asthmatic, that was one thing that was really motivating to you and you didn't want, but was there just a moment in time where you all recognized the weight of and the seriousness of COVID, and then it made you make the decision that you made about vaccination?
Yes, it actually was. I actually knew, I guess, about 4 people that were really close to me that actually died from COVID. But they had underlying health issues. But the things that was explained to me, because I had a cousin that passed from COVID and she was still trying to work, but they told her that she had the flu and it wasn't the flu. And then it like progressed to pneumonia. And then after the pneumonia, she died like a week after that. So it Yeah, I had a lot of people have it. It's misdiagnosed. I had another lady, well, actually another cousin of mine, she had COVID pneumonia. She had COVID at first. She tested positive, then she was tested negative, but she was still sick with symptoms. They couldn't figure out what it was. Her test was still negative, but she ended up dying eventually, and it came back COVID pneumonia. So yeah, it's some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Was there a moment in time where you realized that you could die from it and that changed your decision about vaccination?
Well, I can just say the moment for me when I was sick and I had to go to the hospital because basically I didn't understand. Like, I know with my asthma I have, wheezing and things like that, but there was just a moment where there was nothing that would stop the shortness of breath, not my rescue inhaler or anything like that. And I couldn't even walk from my bedroom to the kitchen without being short of breath. And once I got to the hospital and they told me, they're like, hey, Fallon, you have COVID. And I was laying there and I had the oxygen in my nose, and I had all these IV cords running from my veins. I was like, wow, this is real. So that was the moment for me where I was like, if I was not vaccinated, my parents could actually be planning my funeral right now. So that was a moment for me when it became real.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Anybody else? You guys tapping out? Arthur, you're talking, but you're not on your mic.
No, when she said that, that just made me think. But no, I never had the experience. Wow.
Where you felt like, okay, thank you. All right, well, good. Thank you for that. Okay, so now, right now, because we're having this conversation and you're reflecting maybe more deeply than you had, like, what are some of your feelings about the pandemic and vaccination? What has this brought up for you? You're off the mic. Can't hear you. Jordan.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry. I would say health and wellness, just being mindful of what am I eating on a day-to-day basis? What most of my water intake like on a regular day-to-day basis? Am I exercising for 30 minutes an hour a day or regularly? I think it just became a conversation of health and wellness that was needed for me. And I know for my close sphere of friends, like, hey, are we gonna start working out? Did you jog today? Did you take the kids on a walk? Did you go out with the dog? Just certain things that weren't, I guess, talked about regularly, about just little we would consider them minute details. But in the long run, the small steps that it takes to actually live a more healthy lifestyle. Cutting back, are you drinking once too many times, or like, can you cut? But what things are you doing that aren't adding years to your life or adding longevity to your life? I
Mhm.
wanted to be around, like, I want to be around for my kids. If something happened to me, what are my kids gonna do?
Right.
And so I think it just opened my eyes, just being more aware of daily activities and things to be better.
Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. Arthur, you look like you were going to chime in.
No, he said everything that I wanted to say. It's all about your fitness and your health. If you're not taking care of your immune system, because that's the most important thing today with COVID. So that's important. So to me, for COVID now.
Okay. So Jordan, and then of course, Arthur, you all talked about fitness and that kind of thing. Were there other things that you learned that were supportive of your immune system did any of you all kind of engaged in during the time, and where did you get that information?
I would probably say when I was home, I started reading, books, and a lot of people got into. I think it's Dr. Sebi. They really started to read a lot of books and follow his way of living, just to make sure that they were healthy and to try and get away from certain things as African Americans to help us survive, because we were, dying in such large numbers. I think a lot of us, transitioned our way of life into something more healthy based off of someone who was like us and wanted, us as people of color to be healthy and to live long lives. So that's just a little part for me.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. Anybody else? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. You all have had different experiences. You had different issues that kind of raised up around COVID and vaccination and that kind of thing. Did anyone in your sphere of influence force a conversation about vaccination? Well, I guess you guys have said that your grandparents, the reality that you wouldn't be able to see some people and that kind of thing, but was there any one particular person that forced the conversation about vaccination on you that made you listen differently than you were listening prior to that conversation?
Yeah, work forced me. Literally, I didn't have a choice.
So the circumstances.
Either you're coming to work or you won't get paid or you're terminated.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I've heard, and so now this is the fifth one of these sessions, and I've heard that work forced it, so you had to make a decision between being employed or unemployed. I heard that there were medical procedures that people needed, and the hospital wouldn't not give them the procedure if they were unvaccinated. So there were very specific kind of outside of themselves forces that made them make the decision to get a vaccination. Interesting. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody have another response to that?
Yeah, just a family member saying, if you're not vaccinated, we're not going to be able to come around you. We're not going to hug you. We're not going to come to your house. Oh, that trip you were going to make to come see us, don't come. You're not vaccinated. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so they forced the conversation and you had to make some decisions. Some of the other sessions we talked about, there were a lot of times when it felt like there was an either or conversation. Either you get vaccinated or you're not going to be in my life, rather than you can choose to be vaccinated or choose not to be vaccinated in some kind of way. I'm going to still stay in relationship with you. So it's interesting that people drew a line in the sand and people camped up, in the government. We know that it was politicized and you were either a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer. And there was a lot of negative connotations that went with being a non-vaccinated person and quite frankly, tore the country apart from some perspectives. And so what I hope is that some of the kind of things that we are talking about now will help people who are able to make laws that affect all people, are thinking very, very broadly about what it means to be present with people where they are. And it came up a couple of different times when you guys are answering the question about what you hope the government knew. And some of the earlier groups just talked about that this is emotional and that there should be a way to honor the emotion of it. Rather than rush and force and those kind of things. So it's just been really interesting how people experience the different efforts to get people vaccinated en route to, what was called herd immunity. And we know that changed during a time in the pandemic. I work in a health institution. And so just to be clear, we do not believe, and it has not been stated that getting vaccination keeps you from getting COVID. It does not. Vaccinating simply gives you an opportunity to have to experience those symptoms less, and it increases the reality that you will it increases the ability to stay alive rather than die from COVID. So the statistics say that the people that are vaccinated, their death rate decreases compared to unvaccinated members of the community. Okay, we have just a couple of things. I'm looking at the time here, and I know that we were going to kind of recover some of the time that we lost because of our connection issues. But one of the questions has to do with accountability, and so people talk a lot and have talked a lot about being accountable to other people and it being your responsibility to care for other people. And then some of the work that I did with different communities here in Wisconsin, there were some communities that were like, I'm not responsible for other people. They didn't feel like they had a single responsibility for anyone else. And so I'm curious to know what does the idea of accountability mean for you as it relates to vaccination and the people in your sphere of influence or the people that you love? Anybody have strong feelings about whether they're accountable to or for? And I know that some of you all kind of have said that, but we want to just expand that for a little bit. Who are you accountable to or for?
So I feel like I'm a representative of my family. Like if I get sick, because I'm from a close-knit family, we spend a lot of time with each other, and everybody's immune system ain't always just up to part. So if I'm sick, or if I'm sick and I don't even know it, I risk a chance of taking it to your house. And even above the elderly, what about your babies?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in your house breathing your air, and your baby has to come here and, get any airborne illnesses I may be carrying.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. And so sounds like you feel like you're accountable to the people that you spend time with and who are in your sphere of influence. And so one of the reasons that you chose to get vaccinated was because you were thinking of them. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Other folks about accountability. Who do you feel you're responsible for? Or how did you experience the whole conversation about accountability?
I'm responsible for um, independence. I don't want my family to ever worry about taking care of me if that happens. Um, I want to be able to prevent that. So that's taking a vaccine. I will prevent having that to happen because I rarely get sick. So I don't want them to be, overwhelmed or something like that. And also I have sickly family members as well with autism and remission of cancer, things like that. And, I'd rather prevent, any other unforeseen circumstances to occur um, when I'm not being responsible for my own actions.
Thank you for that, Arthur. Jordan, Fallon, you guys have anything that you want to add to that?
Sure. I would say, the same as everyone else. The people around me, my immediate family, and just taking care of your community. Who's to say, I might not be in the store and, you know, engage in the conversation with someone, whose immune system, might be a little lower than mine, and all of a sudden they get sick, and I just felt like we should all do our part.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, because I got the vaccination, I did my part for my community, not just for my family, but I did my part for everyone else around me, children, the elderly, just everyone around me. So that's my take on it.
That's great. Thank you for that sharing. Jordan, did you have anything?
Nope.
Nope. Great. Let me just look at these questions to see if we answered any. And while I'm looking at these, is there anything that you wanted to share that you thought about? I want to give you just a little bit of time if anyone had any closing remarks to share. Anybody?
I'll go ahead.
Saw you. Go ahead.
I'll just say in closing, Like I mentioned, I did get COVID twice, and each time, my symptoms were not as bad. And if I can, I continue to tell people that all the time. I don't know how your body works, but I'm just telling you about mine. It it helped me, and if I could, tell the next person that, it helped me, then I feel like I'm just sharing my little piece of the story, when it comes to COVID. So if I could, help the next person or just share my story, and they're like, hey, what, I might just go ahead and get that vaccine, then I feel like I've done my little part.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Did someone else have something?
Okay. It kind of ties into the last question too, I guess, but it was good. I mean, for me, it was more, I guess, it's more morality and just the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. Um, Caring for the next person. Like, we have a job as African Americans, we have a job even bigger than that as humans, like to care for ourselves. I want the world in 20 years, when my kids are 30, 20, 25 years, to be better than what it is now. And I know that some of these conversations, they can be emotional and they do get tough, but some of the stuff is really eye-opening, and just gives different viewpoints on why we do things, or why I do things, and why I don't do some things, and different perspectives, which I think is something that I can grow in, even in everyday life. So it's definitely eye-opening, and just good to hear other people's experiences and being able to relate to them, or hearing something new. So
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say my faith actually entwines in, caring for other people, because I actually contracted COVID as well. Um, I know how as well. I was at the mall,
mm,
and I was just someone asked me, "Hey, why don't you have a mask on?" And I'm like, "You're right. I don't have a mask on," because I wasn't actually concerned about the hype at that moment. And when I understood what it feels like when I contracted it, I was hyperventilating. Um, I had constant headaches, um, just things that I wasn't familiar with. And it led me to almost depression, because I had to actually isolate myself from the world. So, I mean, I don't wish that upon anyone. No one deserves to be sick alone, and to go through that pain and that suffering. So that was my concern about COVID. I'm more you know worried about someone that's not actually able to be alone, because they've so used to being around family and kids and things like that. So dogs and things like that, even though they can catch COVID too. So I'm thinking, so
Okay, thank you. And so we are winding down our time now. If you guys, does anyone want to share just a learning, something that you learned during the pandemic, just to close us out? And you guys have kind of answered this, but I just want to make sure that I give you all another opportunity. If there's a salient comment that you want to share on as we bring the time together to a close, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. Fallon, did you have your hand up, or?
Yeah, I'll say this. Life is precious, and I grew up in church, and I'll say give people their flowers while they live, because you just never know. No one expected, COVID to be the reason why they lost their mother or their father, their baby, their brothers, anything like that. So appreciate life. Tell your families that you love them, because we just never know what's next. So that's all I have.
Yeah, that's a great point to end on. Thank you so much for that. That was a gift. So thank you all. Thank you for sharing your time with me and us tonight. Thank you for just the experience that you've had and the reflection that you've shared during this time. And I will be in touch about what happens next with the information shared in this recording. So thank you so very much for just being a part of the conversation. So you all have a very great night, and hopefully I'll see you another time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys. Take care.